I totally agree with you. I would not be happy to be part of a 12-step program, or other type of programs which labeled me forever as something that I'm seeking not to be identified with anymore. But in the initial stages, one of the biggest issues with addiction is denial. And so in initial stages, getting someone to admit that they are powerless over their addiction and their addiction controls them is very difficult for a lot of people. They don't want to admit that they're addicted. They don't want to admit that they're being controlled by an addiction. So they're in denial. So I can see that the first step is acknowledging that you have a problem, but you don't want to be acknowledging you have the same problem years later when you don't have the problem anymore. So if there is a effective recovery program, then you should recover. And therefore, I don't believe you should be associating with the concept that this is a lifelong condition, that you will just have to accept that you are an addict forever. Now, I obviously understand that for some people, their personality types or various things that have happened in their life might lend them, and that could be genetic and spiritual, that they might have a tendency to addictiveness. And the same thing in minor things would be OCD and other things, which is an addiction to doing things a certain way. And I would say that to effectively deal with that, you have to own that you have a problem, and then you deal with the problem and what caused the problem, and then you shouldn't have the problem for the rest of your life. That shouldn't mean that you should be blasé and just, I can do whatever I like. You need to be aware that certain things may be triggers, but I wouldn't say that I would be encouraging people to maintain I am an addict for the rest of their lives, and identify with that when you're, as you say, trying to renew your mind to the fact that you are a new creation in Christ. You are an overcomer. There are so many positive things that you can identify with rather than identifying with one of the negative things. But initially you do have to, otherwise you won't deal and face with the problems. But I wouldn't stay there. Most of the problems is, why is the addiction there? What are you using? Alcohol, drugs, food, or any other thing, sex, or any other type of addiction to cover up or mask the symptoms that you're feeling about yourself? Because usually it's about how you feel about yourself in some way that you don't like, or you can't face a memory or something that's happened to you. So you cover it up, blotting out. You'd rather not think about it. So you do everything not to avoid it, but all you're doing is putting a sticking plaster over a problem, which is actually festering and getting worse and worse underneath the sticking plaster. It's not dealing with the infection. It's just covering it up. And you've got an idea, where did the infection come from? What caused it? What trauma, what stuff happened? Because there will be something in someone's life which is a trigger for whatever they're now feeling. And if you don't identify that, a lot of programs just try and help people cope with their situation, not deal with it. And you can get behavioral therapy and you can get rehabilitation, which helps you manage your addiction, helps you put strategies in, relapse prevention strategies, and all of those things, which are all valuable in their own way. But actually, you could have a dry drunk. You can have someone who's still actually a drunk, they just don't drink, and that's their coping mechanism, but they still would probably have something else that they do to cover their pain or everything else. Or they've learned to identify their pain and they just live with it rather than getting it healed. For me, healing is part of recovery. And if you're not healed from the wounds of the past, you will still have a wound that is actually hurting you. And that's where forgiveness comes into the scenario and everything.
I'd like to introduce you to the Engaging God program. Join us and hundreds of others around the world on this exciting adventure, and I'll look forward to walking with you on this journey.